If you're tired of feeling shame about past financial decisions, worried you'll never achieve financial stability, and ready for a clear plan to take control of your money and experience true financial freedom, you're in the right place. Hey, I'm Lisa, wealth activator, independent insurance broker, and your guide to rewriting your money story. I learned the secret to creating financial freedom and stability after divorce, and I'm ready to share it with you. If you're ready for steady, stress-free income, clarity with your money, and the confidence to spend without guilt, grab your favorite essential oil, take a deep breath, and let's sniff our way through the smell of money. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to this episode of I Date Money. I had some issues with getting booted off my system in the middle of recording, and it's really no fun. But this is what happens. We get this interruption, and we get interruptions in our life, in our finances, all around us, right? Especially, whatever time of year it is for you, we seem to ask ourselves this one question: why did this happen to me? And so I just want you to give a different perspective. Instead of asking why, how can I use this for my benefit? And this is what we're going to be diving into today, is just flipping the switch. And if this is something that you want to know more about, then I encourage you to join the 7-day conscious spending challenge, where you get to flip the script on the way that you handle your money just by being aware. No judgment, no shame, just by looking at it and saying, oh, this is what I'm doing with my money, and this is how I'm choosing to spend it. So today we are going to be spending some time with Dr. Dan Sneider. He is an experienced couples and individual therapist who teaches proven techniques that transform relationships for the better. He lives in Asheville, North Carolina with his 2 amazing kids. His signature 12-week program, The Intimacy Shift, a blueprint for moving from conflict to lasting connection, is open to anybody ready to build or rebuild their intimate connection. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Dan. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you were. I love having people that are focused on relationships on the show, because we can parallel that so well with our relationship with money. So tell us, what was your relationship with money like growing up? What's it like now? And what do you hope for it to be like in the future?
Yeah, certainly. Well, thank you so much for having me on, Lisa. I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you and to share with your audience. And getting right into it, my earliest memory with money. So I grew up in a household where my dad was an accountant. He was also a lawyer, but very focused, because of his childhood, on the scarcity of money. So for him, a goal was to acquire, to build wealth, and to keep it. There was fear associated with it and scarcity. And so some of my earliest memories are signing, right? Paper and pen, not a pencil, but paper and pen, signing off for my weekly allowance. So I think it was a quarter at the time when I was a kid, but both my sister and I, we each had our own sign-in sheets, and it was very formal. And this was a very important thing for my dad, was building financial literacy and responsibility from an early age. And one of the takeaway feelings that I had was, money's not fun. Money's very formal, and it's very kind of rigid, right? We have to sign these agreements, and either we have money or we do not. And if we forgot to sign, then maybe we didn't get our allowance. And there were some harsh lessons associated with it. And so that was some of my early memories, was that we had money in our household. We were privileged. We were lucky. We had our basic and more than our basic needs taken care of. But there was very much this feeling that money was scarce and needed to be held on to tightly. And that's something that you and I will talk some about, because there's some good lessons there, but also some dangerous lessons too that affected me later in life.
Mm-hmm. I bet that's a lot of us grew up with that scarcity mindset. And I think, people still see it even after retirement. They're afraid to spend their money. They've worked and saved, they set aside money, they've invested, and now it's time to enjoy. And they're like, I don't know if I should touch it, because will there be enough? So there's so many layers, and I know you probably explore this a lot with your clients, but what are like some of the top layers that prevent us, some of the top thoughts that keep us from feeling safe and secure with our money.
Certainly. Yeah. So, like you mentioned, a lot of the work that I do is with relationships. And of course, going from, one person's relationship with money to then two people trying to mix and blend the way that they merge their finances, talk about their money, and either spend or save or what we do with it can become very complicated and very emotional, right? Money is often an
Hmm.
emotional decision. A lot of times with couples, I will hear one person saying, well, logically, this is the correct thing to do. And the other person may be in their feelings and say, but this would feel good. And we end up speaking different languages. And to the person who claims that they are being entirely logical, I try to soften and try to help them see that it's rooted in their feelings about money. It's not
Hmm.
just a black and white answer. And so, yeah, we can certainly today talk about relationships and how two people can more healthily explore what to do with their money, how to both protect it and also use it as a tool, right? We
Hmm.
want money to be this vehicle for things in the world, and it can be for pleasure and it can be for practicality and hopefully a good mix of both. But it
Hmm.
does take a healthy relationship with money and with our partner to be able to talk about and make these choices from a secure and safe place.
Yes, and money is definitely a tool, and I think a lot of people miss that. Everyone is chasing after it and thinking, "Oh, if I just make more money, then." I know, and whatever that then is, and then they go and make more money. I know I was guilty of this. I had full-time job, 3 part-time jobs all at the same time, and more money did not solve a problem. It made me stressed
Right.
out, and it created more desires for things, and I just kept spending more. And so really having that relationship, that thought process in place of, okay, what happens when I get more money? One of the exercises we do in our Wealth Accelerator program is looking at money, writing money a letter and saying, "Dear money, this is how I want you to show up in my life." So, what is your experience with that? How do you want money to show up in your life?
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. And so, a great deal of my adult relationship with money is filtered through what happened in my marriage and in my relationship when uh, we first came together, merged lives, started having kids, growing our family, and a lot of those decisions. And so, at that point in my life, coming from that scarcity mindset I mentioned earlier, I was in many ways more focused on the financial relationship being built than the emotional relationship with my partner. And that, of course, had consequences, right, to our emotional connection. And so at that point, what I wanted from money was very much safety, right? I wasn't feeling safe at that time. I was feeling like we're wanting to buy a house. We're wanting to provide for our kids. We don't have what we need in order to do these things. And I was scared. I was fearful. And so my instinct was to be protective, to withhold spending, to really, in some ways, hoard and keep money close, even for things that maybe were a small dollar value amount, to me had an outsized emotional impact that I would be very upset about spending money on almost anything. And that's a lot of what I see in relationships and in couples where the two people have different attitudes or mindsets and it becomes resentment, criticism, hard feelings between the two people.
Hmm.
So in my intimacy shift program, which I encourage people to take a look at, one of the first things that I help couples to do is to be able to have conversations with each other that are grounded in safety and in healthy communication, where we're using I language instead of you language.
Hmm.
So if I'm saying to the other person, you do this, you do that, that's a criticism. It's attacking. It's going to provoke the other person to, no, I'm not, and defend themselves. And you do this. And so in my program, one of the main things that I do is building that healthy relationship where we can talk about things in a more safe and secure way. And
Hmm.
that goes to your question about, writing a letter to money, like, dear money, what would you, what do I want to do with you? That's very much focused in I language, being in tune with, what do I want? That core question. And if we can answer that question, if we can write it down clearly, we're coming from a place of health and safety and self reflection. So
Hmm.
I see those exercises really well connected.
Yeah, and especially I'm a certified aromatherapy practitioner, so I add the scent to that. And with the breath work and the thoughts and the feelings, it's amazing the shifts that we can get so much faster processing it. So many of us just, emotionally spend. We hide from our feelings and then we use, shopping to make us feel better, to give us that dopamine hit. And then there's so much guilt, especially for single moms, you know, thinking, I feel so bad about the breakup. I'm just going to provide for my children, over provide for my children, shower them with gifts and do all these different things so that I can feel better about the situation. So what's your viewpoint on dealing with the emotional spending patterns that we create in our lives?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that question, because it's something I think so many of us have an understanding of, where we're having an uncomfortable feeling and we are reactive, right? That's
Mhm.
an impulse or a reaction in order to chase a feeling, right? And anytime we are chasing feelings, there's that hangover effect at the end. Oh my gosh, I can't believe what I did. And then there's guilt, there's shame. And so I think about it a lot like addiction in a way, where if we're chasing safety or chasing connection, even with our kids, and we're trying to maybe spend into that, we're looking for something, that is positive, but we're looking in the wrong place. In relationships, that can happen too, where one person may look for, porn and masturbation to meet a sexual need rather than trying to find healthy connection with their partner. And so they're looking for connection, but they're chasing it in the wrong place.
Mhm.
And so for people that are struggling with emotional spending or that impulse spending, like you mentioned, either grounding through our five senses, you mentioned aromatherapy,
Mhm.
powerful, sense. I'll help people to use a five senses grounding exercise before they make a decision, before they say something that they can't unsay or take back. To
Mhm.
go through all five of those senses. Notice the things that you can see in the room around you, the things you can hear, touch, taste, smell. Taking deep breaths and really bringing yourself into that present moment can help slow down that impulse. And so then once we're grounded in that present moment, then we can answer that question, what do I want? Right? What do I really want in this moment?
Mhm.
Okay, I want to, maybe like you mentioned in your example, like I want my kids to have fun with me, right? I want to have fun with my kids. There's lots of
Mhm.
ways that we can do that. And spending money is one way, but certainly not the only way. And we want, with our relationships, to build closeness in ways that are healthy and sustainable. And I know for my kids, I'm a parent. My kids are young. They're 8 and 5, and they are so much fun to be around. And they will often ask me for things, for new things.
Mhm.
Sometimes the answer is yes, but a lot of times it's, we have toys here at the house. And if I take the moment as a parent to go over to that drawer that hasn't been opened, I sit down with the toy and I start playing with it. All of a sudden the kids are there with me and we're having
Mhm.
fun together. And we didn't need to spend that money. We didn't need to do a big thing. I was present in the moment and found something right there to do with them. But it
Mhm.
takes that pause, it takes that moment to get grounded in your senses.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful practice. I had a friend that used to rotate the toys because they'd get so much for Christmas or holidays, whatever. And she would put half of them in the closet. And then when the kids started asking for more toys, she'd take the current ones that they were playing with, put them away, and then take the other ones out and look like they had new toys. So it is a great idea. But I find that, yeah, the material stuff doesn't really make up for that quality time. Connecting, as you said, we all want that human connection. And a lot of times when we don't get it, we'll focus ourselves on things that might replace it because it's too painful to go after it, or we don't think we're deserving. I know a lot of clients that I work with, their self-worth is non-existent. Like they don't take care of themselves and they're so busy people pleasing and doing everything for everyone else that they haven't even taken the time to say, "Oh, how can I take care of me so that I can better fit in with what I desire, my goals, and I can feel that connection?" Because I think a lot of times we just kind of numb out and we use different vices like, the shopaholic syndrome versus the alcoholic versus, the person who's the workaholic, whatever the alcoholic part of it is, that's what we drive towards. So, those of you listening, where are you focusing your attention and what are you hiding from or trying to avoid because it's so painful? But once you work through that painful moment, everything literally opens up and brightens up and you realize, wow, I can really do this differently. So I love the grounding practice that you have in place. When you think about like long-term goals and teaching your children, I actually just published a book for children ages 3 to 7 called Lionfin's Money Adventure, Discover the Magic of Saving, Spending, and Sharing, just on this mission to help eliminate financial illiteracy and to set up our younger generation to realize like it's this simple, like just set aside a percentage of your income of any money that you get and save it and and give some away and then enjoy some because we automatically will adjust our expenses based on how much money we have. I'm sure you're familiar with the Parkinson's law. And when we do that, there's so much more money to have. And a lot of people feel like, well, if I get money, then I might be mean because rich people are not nice people. And there's these stories that we tell ourselves. So what are some of the stories that you've told yourself or maybe that you've inherited from your past that you've had to really, look at and those that you realize, wait a minute, I don't want my kids to grow up with these stories. I want them to do things differently.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that. I didn't know about the book for
Yeah.
kids, so I'm certainly going to be checking that out. And you do so many things, so you keep adding. Oh, and I do this.
Yeah.
I love hearing that, Lisa. I love hearing people that are excited and invested in different projects. That
Mhm.
energy is contagious. And like you mentioned, the person who, their self-worth is down and low. And what a great example for how much we are capable of when we can shed those layers of doubt and shame and guilt and really let ourselves be more free and believe in what we're capable of. So thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
And yeah, some of the things that I certainly want to change for my kids, like I don't have them sign out, their allowance. They do get an allowance, but it's not formal or rigid in the same way that mine was. And like I mentioned, pen and paper. I also remember going to a bank and getting a deposit book, a physical book that would print the amount of money that was there. And so for my children, what I've been doing is they get, cash, physical money for their allowance, and then we have conversations. So not so much about, exactly how much money they have, although they do like to count it, but more about, the things that they are wanting and why they want it and how long they think they might enjoy the thing that they're getting. And so having those conversations, like we're talking about, writing a letter to money or reflecting on the question, what do I want? That's a big part of what I'm helping my children with. And oftentimes they choose to save the money at the end of the day because they realize, actually, maybe I don't want that thing as much as I thought I did. It was
Mhm.
more of a fantasy than a reality for them. And same thing like you described with that impulse spending, or that money creep of I'm making more money and I'm spending more money and not able to get ahead. So much of what all of us people do is we live in fantasy rather than reality. And
Mm.
same thing for that shopaholic or that alcoholic or any kind of addiction or living in an imaginary world that we've created in our head. And when we get to where we wanted to, we realized I don't actually like it here very much. That thrill of buying the thing is short-lived. And so retraining our brains to be in that present moment and to practice more healthy connection with money is something that I'm very passionate about. And again, in my program at theintimacyshift.com, where I have some giveaways and then some tools and practices for people right away, one of the things that I really want to teach is that ability to stay in the present moment rather than in that fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can keep ourselves here, we can then look at, well, I've done, 10 times in a row that impulse spending. How did I feel afterwards? Okay, I actually felt that guilt and that shame and didn't really like the choice that I had made. So if I'm able to pause for a moment and remember those things, I can make a different choice here in the present.
I love that. There's a book that talks about just being in the moment and just sitting and being very aware of your surroundings. So I love that you had shared that. It's so important because we're always thinking of our future or we're reflecting on our past and we're never really fully present with what's going on, and we miss these tiny moments. So thank you so much for sharing that. So tell us, you've shared so much value with our audience. I know they're going to reap so much from this conversation and be able to just start asking themselves the questions to help them get that shift that they're looking for. How do you specifically work with couples? I know you said individuals as well, but how do you help them, and what's the best way for them to get connected with you?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, my website, intimacyshift.com. You can leave your email there and you'll get a free download with 6 proven steps to having successful conversations either with yourself or with your partner about anything and everything from sex and intimacy if you're in a relationship or wanting to build a healthy relationship, to finances, to parenting. So my program is a 12-week program starting in January, starting in April, and starting in September. I run it 3 times a year, and it's 12 weeks live with me. I'm teaching this framework, and it is helping couples or individuals that are in a relationship and want things to change and grow. And it's a lot of the things we've been talking about today. It's being able to get grounded, get in the present moment, and have a conversation with yourself or with your partner that's healthy, that's safe, and that builds connection and builds intimacy. And so that can be with money, right? We can absolutely have a safe and healthy, intimate relationship with money, or we can with another person. And a lot of those skills overlap, which is why I was so excited to come on your podcast and kind of merge those worlds. Because a lot of couples that I work with, like I mentioned with myself and my relationship, are struggling with the money baggage that they bring into a relationship. And so being able to talk about your money decisions together in a healthy way and in a fun way, because if we're creating this partnership, we want to be making decisions together. And that does take effort. It does take work to understand the other person's point of view. So like I mentioned, people can come to my website. They can get that free download right away at intimacyshift.com, and they can explore some options for working with me in that 12-week program.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that valuable information. For those of you listening, please check the show notes, go get that free download, and think about, January is right around the corner and the holidays are here. So what are you going to gift yourself? This might be something that what you're looking for to help you get to the next level. Instead of chasing the money, instead of worrying about the finances, instead of feeling guilty every time you make a purchase, maybe you can just stop, be in the present moment, and think, how can I do things differently? Because remember, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it's what you do with it. Hey mompreneurs, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, please follow the show and share it with a friend who's rebuilding her finances after divorce. No spreadsheets, no restrictive budgets, only confidence to build financial freedom. Also, please drop a quick 5-star review so more moms starting over can find this. It lights me up to know this podcast is helping you. Inhale confidence, exhale scarcity. I'll meet you back on Tuesday for another episode. It doesn't matter how much money you have, it's what you do with it.